Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Virtual Executive Director podcast. My name is Becky Caldwell, and I'm your host. I'm an executive coach for nonprofit and mission-driven leaders, and I also serve as the actual executive director, not virtual, of the Virginia Highlands Festival in Abingdon, Virginia. This week on the podcast, I have back my friend and my coach, Jen Moff. Jen is the founder of Magical Mindfulness, where she empowers burned out professional women to invest in themselves so they can step out of the shadows and into the spotlight. Her areas of expertise include the intersections of leadership and employee experience, play and personal development, and relationships and spiritual growth. Jen is also an expert on mindfulness, on communication, and on self-care. And these are the things that I wanted to talk to her about today, especially given everything that's going on in the world with COVID-19, how it's affecting us as leaders and our organizations and our society. I thought, oh my gosh, this is the perfect person to have a conversation with right now. Jen can be found most places on social media as the Jen Moff, and I'll include links in the show notes. And I hope that you, if you get nothing out of this coming episode, I hope that you get the concept that there are lessons and there are opportunities to be found right now. So lessons and opportunities to be found right now. And that's not to make light of anyone who is currently suffering for any reason because of this crisis or for any reason at all. I mean, plenty of people are suffering around the world for various reasons. In fact, that is why all of our organizations exist, isn't it? But I want us all to be mindful of the fact that, and I don't always buy into the idea that everything happens for a reason. Sometimes things just happen and they suck. But there's always something we can learn from it. And that's what I want everyone to take away from this week's podcast episode. The other thing I want you to be aware of is that we cuss in this week's episode. So if that bothers you, please skip it and go listen to something else this week. Or if you just don't want your littles to hear, look, we should all be self-isolated. So you're probably not listening to this in an office or on a commuter train anyway. But if you happen to be listening when there are other people around who might not appreciate a good F-bomb, put some earbuds in right now. Okay, great. All right, quick announcements, a couple of quick announcements. First of all, in this day and age of isolation and social distancing and us all working from home now, I know that my spring project, a couple of big spring projects at my day job are delayed. What this means for you is I've got some additional spots available for executive coaching. So if you're interested in executive coaching and learning more about what that would entail, just send me an email, becky@virtualexecutivedirector.com, or message me on Facebook. And the toolkit that I promised last week, well, I kind of got sick. Not with COVID-19, just a regular head cold, but still it did knock me out for several days there. And so the toolkit's not done. It will be done this week. So please keep your eyes peeled. If you are on my email list, you will get advance notice once it is available. And this is a toolkit to stay, ironically, to stay focused during these tough times, or really any time that you're trying to get something done and you keep getting interrupted. So this is the same toolkit that I created it for myself based on available information. And it's the toolkit that I used, the method that I used to raise money for my organization. I doubled our fundraising in the first year, so that was kind of effective. And it's the toolkit I currently use to stay focused on priorities right now when it seems like the very ground underneath us keeps shifting. So that will be available very soon. Also, if this podcast brings you any value and you have the cash to spare, please consider donating to our Patreon page. And I've got some swag to send you. And I offer mini episodes only for our Patreon subscribers. So please check us out over at patreon.com/virtual executive director. I appreciate all of our Patreon supporters. All right, let's get going on with the show. I'm here with Jen Moff, who is a coach. She is a relationship coach. She is my coach for my own executive and personal development. And she gave me some really great advice that I think I shared last week on last week's podcast about not taking in video information and keeping it to the printed word because you just won't absorb it as well. And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to have Jen on to talk to all of us about self-care during this time of COVID-19, and particularly because we all know, wash your hands, don't touch your face, remain a Tom Hiddleston away from everybody else. Tom Hiddleston is 6 feet 2 inches. And that's my preferred unit of measurement.
I like that.
Thank you. And but no one has been talking to those of us in leadership positions who have, like, I think a lot of us are keeping our freakouts on hold or in private.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, what are we supposed to do with ourselves? Jen, what are we supposed to do with ourselves?
Well, I was just going to tell you to wash your hands and stay Tom Hiddleston feet away from everybody, but you've already got that covered. It's so important, I think, as leaders to think about these things. I love that that's like your main thing. You're like, leaders typically are there to serve others. So we don't think about ourselves immediately. We tend to put ourselves last. And that's a very outdated yet functional way of working and living and being. However, this situation has definitely shown us some old systems just don't work quite as well as we would like them to. So as leaders, we really have to demonstrate for the people that we serve what we want to see from them. It's one of those things like, a parent would say, do as I say, not as I do. That shit don't fly no more. We have to show people what it is that the proper way of caring for ourselves looks like. Pre-March here in the US anyway, it looked one way. We're at the end of March now. That's when we're recording this. And that's a whole different reality. We're in a transition and we have to find new ways of making that work. So prioritizing ourselves, number one. That's the first and foremost thing. It is not selfish to take care of yourself. It is not selfish to put yourself first. It is not that you are no longer being a leader by prioritizing you. This is about you behaving in a way that is going to impact more and more people from an energetic standpoint. Like Becky was sharing about how last week I mentioned to her, and she shared on the podcast, when you consume content, whether it's just the written word, whether it's auditory, whether it's video, there's different ways that we receive that communication as three pieces of the pie. First piece is 7%. It's just the words that we choose. The biggest hunk is body language. 55% of it is body language. So if you're not watching someone, you're automatically losing half of the message. You're not taking that into your system. You're not picking up on their, just energy field of whatever is kind of stressing them out, because we can tell. You can look at somebody and tell when they're stressed, whether they open their mouth or not. So we have to be aware enough of ourselves and how that's going to impact other people. So if we're not feeling good, there's no amount of, we've got to take care of everybody else first, that's going to be effective. You know what I mean?
Yes. So okay, so prioritizing yourself, or well, you mentioned that, okay, now in this post-March world in the United States and post whatever month you need to choose for whatever country you're listening in right now,
Yes.
um, what what does self-care look like now? So you mentioned it looks like prioritizing yourself. It looks like demonstrating, leading by
Hmm.
example, which
Yes.
frankly we should all be doing anyway. Um, what else does it look like?
Tangibly, it looks like a couple of things. Um, it's my personal belief that this is a gift that we've been given to rethink how we do things.
Mm.
So, as I mentioned before, self-care looked one way, 30 days, 90 days, whatever it is for you ago. Instead of looking at this from a place of, well, I've got to find something that works now. I have to manage all my stress. It's how would I like to take care of myself now in this new normal? For me, my new normal, and for you, Becky, and for many of you guys listening, we're self isolating. We're physically distancing ourselves from others. So we're being asked to stay home. So we're limited in some of the things that we maybe used to have within reach or were accessible. So getting creative with what we have in our homes to take care of ourselves. So for me personally, that is been not too big of a change because I live and I work from home, but that's not true for everybody. Even still living and working from home, I've had to ramp up my self-care game, meaning I have limits on how much time I consume content about COVID-19. So for me, it's about 30 minutes a day. That's kind of my tipping point. Beyond that, immediately my mindset goes in the shitter. I just am not able to support myself or others. So setting boundaries around what you consume on the topic and where you get that information from is really essential. Do your best to find something that is neutral, bipartisan, that is not trying to steer any message one way or another, just the facts and nothing but the facts.
And preferably in
So
written form, right?
yes, I was about to say, and if you have the opportunity to just get it via written, then go with that. You'll thank me later. So aside from the boundaries of consumption, it's how can you support your nervous system? This is extremely stressful for all of us. Stress on the body can be considered a trauma. It's a trauma in any way is something that we are not equipped to manage or handle. So you can have big T traumas and little T traumas. I would definitely say that this is traumatic for a lot of people. They don't know what to do. I ran into a lady who lives in my condominium. She's in her 90s and she's never experienced anything like this in her lifetime. So none of us are exempt from this stress. So how do we manage the trauma? How do we manage the stress? How do we manage the discomfort? The nervous system is in a state of sympathetic vibes, if you will, if it is stressed out. That means it's hyper aware, it's looking for safety, it is not in a mellow, calm, peaceful state. We want to get to that, and that's called the parasympathetic nervous system. So certain activities are really helpful to get to that place. Mindfulness is paramount. So you can do that actively through meditation. You can do that passively through mindful awareness of every moment. I personally have been doing much more mindful eating exercises. I've made myself sit at the table every meal, no technology. And that's been hard for me. I ain't gonna lie. It's been a little challenge. It's been a little stretch. Another thing it's really good for the nervous system is baths and water and showers and maintaining your regular hygiene. I've done more and more of that. Like I've ramped up what I do. So I have a weekly kind of routine to make sure every Sunday night I have a self-care whole kind of ritual for myself. So you can get creative and find something that's really supportive for you, whatever that may look like. Making sure that it's not, I should be doing this, because that's not going to help you here. You want to choose something that sounds really exciting and fun. If you don't have that, just set it to the side. Another key point in managing your nervous system is connection with people. That's why I'm not a huge fan of this term social distancing, because it's like saying you've got to distance yourself from social connection. And that's exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do here. We need connection. We need community. So it's more physical distancing and social connection. So being very intentional about reaching out to people that are family, friends, professionals, colleagues. I personally set a little goal that I'm going to connect with 3 people a day that I wouldn't normally get to, just ask them how they are, check in with their family. I can easily do that via social media. Personally, I like using that as a tool. Again, find whatever tool works for you that is fun and exciting, because that is going to keep your mood, your mental state higher, and not get pulled down into the weight of, the yucky bad vibes that are out there. There's plenty of anger and fear and frustration. Your job is to support yourself with tools and resources and activities that excite you and light you up. That's going to help.
Can we talk a little bit about, because maybe there are those of us out there whose previous systems were not set up in ways that light us up and make us happy and excited.
Yeah.
And now we're all finding we're finding ourselves in this new world of working from home and needing to be accountable. And so how I don't even know where to, how do you do that if you're not in a place of, okay.
If this is a completely foreign thing for people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like if you're in, let's say you're in a highly regulated kind of industry, I'm thinking medical. Yep. We have a lot of social service nonprofits who listen. And what if this, if the system that they need to adhere to,
yes,
for reasons, very valid reasons, it doesn't light them up and it fucking sucks. It's just like, how do we balance that? What's something we can either, how do we balance that out? This is like the most poorly worded moment.
I got you.
Thank you for catching all that stuff I just threw at the microphone. It was just,
here's what's beautiful about you, Becky. You're so well spoken that you were doing your best to articulate it in a way that was palatable. And I knew where you're going. Like, you're like, what if your situation's just shitty and you ain't happy about it? And
exactly.
how in the hell am I supposed to be happy about it?
What the fuck am I supposed to do with this? That's how I feel half the time.
I think there's a couple of things that I can say to that. I've been in that situation, and although I haven't been in it during a pandemic, I still remember the visceral feeling of misery. That's burned in. So I know what that feels like. It's my personal belief that there's a couple of things that I would say. One, it's my personal belief that there is gifts and lessons to be received from everything that we experience. So in this situation, if you are really unhappy in what you're doing for whatever reason, and it's been something that you've kind of ignored, like, oh, my tooth really hurts, but it's not too bad. And now all of a sudden, I need a root canal. Don't wait for things to become unbearable before you make a change. There are things that people are learning right now about themselves that they've neglected to pay attention to. So pay attention to the things that are not making you happy and say, this is the time that I get to decide what will make me happy. Life is too short. I have so many things that I am good at and that I do enjoy that I can pursue and give back to the world in a way that is purposeful and profitable. So that being said, I'm not saying quit your job and go find a new one immediately. I am saying pay attention to that, make a note, and make a commitment to yourself for the future. In the present, that's the second piece of this. In the present, I would say, be honest with yourself about how you're feeling and work through those feelings. Don't numb them out. Don't ignore them, because they're just going to get buried inside, and then you're going to have explosions at people that you care about in the workplace, out of the workplace, and then that's a whole nother can of worms. The next step there is to find time when you can give yourself what you need. And I'm going to be brutally honest here, not that I haven't been before, but like, just for added emphasis, I'm saying that now. Sometimes this was true for me and many people that I've had as clients. When we're in a situation where we're not happy in the workplace, or it sucks, or it's just regularly, not because of a pandemic, we might be around people that don't understand us or aren't as supportive. Your job is not to go to those people that are not going to be supportive to you or for you or with you. It's to find people that will encourage and support you and lift you up so that you have that community to go to. Your schedule might just be kind of bizarre, but you have control over your mindset. You have control over your day. Yes, you might have an obligation or responsibility to be somewhere or do something at a certain time, but that is not 24/7, 365. Don't fall into a victim mentality that you have no control and everything is bad for you, because you do have pockets of time and energy and free will to make decisions that support yourself. Even as small as the 15 minutes before you go to bed and the first 15 minutes when you wake up. You have a choice about how you end your day, with appreciation for things, with lessons that you are grateful that you received, or misery, exhaustion, scrolling your phone.
We have more
I've been
control
on
than we
both
think we
sides.
do.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely do. Sometimes, especially when we're in that kind of frustration place, it doesn't feel good to hear that. Like, well, I don't want to be responsible for this because this is all bullshit. You know?
It's their fault, whoever
yes, they are. Them.
Yeah.
Whoever they are. Yes, you're right.
I read something, and now I wish I could remember where, but I clearly only absorbed 7% of it. I read, but it was like today, I think. It was like earlier this year today when I read something about how right now our brains are cycling because we don't have anything we can relate this to in our current experience, that our brains are just going through this cycle of fight, flight, fight, flight, fight.
Yeah.
And it's like, not like we don't know what to do with this, because as a world, I think there may be 3 people in the world who've ever been through this before.
Sure.
When we find ourselves in that, like, that mood swing of, oh, I'm depressed, everything is horrible. Oh, I need to take action right now on all the things, with my can of bleach wipes, and speaking from experience. How can we, when we okay, let's say we are self-aware enough to know that we're in that cycle.
Sure. Okay.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Love that.
When we recognize that, what is the first thing you would recommend we do?
As soon as you're in the awareness?
Yeah. Like, literally, what's the first thing?
For me, what I find really helpful is just sit with it. That's usually 50% of the time that will happen. The other 50% of the time, it's like, oh man, why did I do that? Or like self-flagellation, just beating yourself up. Shaming yourself isn't gonna help. So I try and remember that there are parts of me. It's not me. There's a part of me that can see this other part of me that is feeling this way. And I can choose to be, again, the choice, in that state of, I can see that there's a part of me that wants to beat myself up about it. And then I can choose which part of me that I want to be in, the driver's seat, so to speak. And after I'm past that first like little hill in the car, then I usually ask myself a question. Why? I just ask, why? Why am I upset about this? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I just allow myself to get curious about it? And I just keep asking why. Like my inner child takes over and it's like, why is the sky blue? Why are there birds over there? Why does daddy smell? Like, I don't know, just every question that a kid can ask, just keep asking, not to annoy yourself, but to allow the curiosity muscle to get to like, what is the real fear? What is the real concern? And then that is the thing that must and gets to be taken care of. 99.9% of the time, it comes back to fear and not feeling safe, primarily. Humans love to feel safe and feel in control. I mean, it's on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like the bottom rung of the ladder or the pyramid. Like, not the safety needs aren't the very bottom. Physiological needs are the very bottom, but we cannot feel safe if we don't know that we're going to have a roof over our head because we can't pay our rent or our mortgage. If we can't buy groceries or we can't have groceries delivered because Amazon and Instacart are on strike and we're trying to self-quarantine. So feeling safe is part of what I mentioned before about the nervous system. When you don't feel safe, you go into that fight or flight or even freeze response. That's my typical one, is to freeze. I just kind of stall out. My car does not go in reverse. It doesn't like press the gas pedal and go forward. I just kind of like, okay. It's just, I don't know how to take action and move. And so I'd encourage you, if you're listening still, obviously you would be, but if you're still listening to this part in particular about fight, flight, or freeze, be able to identify which one yours is, so that you can be proactive about that and know that one's not better than the other. There's none of them are bad. It's just how your nervous system responds to stresses that it is not equipped to manage at the moment. How that works actually scientifically is through the vagus nerve in the brainstem. And the vagus nerve has to do with like fainting and hyper stress responses, all of those things. So if you want further information about why the body does what it does, look up the vagus nerve and polyvagal theory. That's really good stuff here.
Okay. Polyvagal theory.
Yes.
Okay. And so I see a lot of people and hear a lot of people joking about how this must be an introvert's dream. I wouldn't know, as an extrovert who's loving to use physical touch. I'm having issues, Jen. And I would guess that a lot of introverts are actually not super thrilled with this either.
You're right.
Talk to us about that.
You're right. I'm definitely on the introvert extrovert scale. I definitely live more in the middle on the introversion side. So solitude for me I'm totally fine with it. My routine isn't hugely impacted, as I mentioned earlier. However, myself and the other introverts I've talked to are not happy because we're told we can't go out. Like, we want to choose to not go out. Don't tell us we can't go out.
No, that sounds a little bit like a rebel tendency on Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies.
I may have tons of introvert rebels in my life. That's also possible. Aside from the rebel nature, I live alone. I work from home. I don't have pets. I don't have a partner. I do have plants. And while it's nice to have something to take care of and I get to see it grow and it helps even like with the air, I don't know the next time I'm going to be touched
Mm.
again.
Oh, God. Oh my God. Oh, that hurts me.
The night that I realized that, I remember going like, oh man, when was the last time? And I think I know the last time was probably the 2nd of March. I was out at a networking lunch and hugged the ladies goodbye.
Mm.
And I don't know when. I mean, not till the end of April, because I mean, that's a really long time to go without human touch.
Mm-hmm.
It's necessary for releasing oxytocin, which is the love and bonding hormone. It also helps just with your mood.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all the more reason why I've been upping my self-care game, like giving myself like self massage, putting lotions on, oils, taking time in the bath, giving myself facials, doing pedicures, just so I'm touching myself. I even gave myself like a hug the other day and just held myself like for 15, 20 seconds and spoke to myself in a very loving, compassionate way. Will it help me? Yes, because I decided it will.
Mm.
And for those of us that live alone, I empathize with you. I do. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of unknowns at this point.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this unknowns, dealing with unknowns. So, what if you're the type of person who just does not handle vagueness very well? What if you need a plan, even if it's not the plan that's going to work? How can we
Well,
deal with
my question to you would be, well, not even to you, but just in general. My question.
We just started having a session, everybody.
My question. I don't know what that noise was. I've been alone too long, clearly. Or this is just how I am. What was the question? I'm just kidding. So if you need control and clarity and structure, and you're not getting answers and information that you want and that you need, know that you're not alone, because we're all in a very similar boat. And again, if this was me, and at one point it really was, I needed to have answers about so many things, about why people did what they did, how I could best leverage this. I would overdo, overachieve, over-research, over. And that comes from a root issue of believing you need to be perfect and therefore have control over other things. Because once you can know everything, then you can plan and prepare and do and perform just so. And this is an opportunity for you to move through and past those false beliefs about yourself. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. And if there's things that you do want control over, you have them. There's your circle of influence is how you respond, your beliefs, your attitudes, your values. This might be a gift for you to realize I don't get to have control over everything, and find the benefit in that. Find what the lesson and the receiving is in that, so that it can help you feel more safe and comfortable and in control.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it sounds like that even I mean, I don't want to make light of anything. Like,
Sure.
Clearly people are suffering, clearly people have died.
Yeah.
This is not like a super fun, awesome time in our global history. That said, there are opportunities, there are things that this makes possible that wouldn't have been possible without it.
Yeah.
And what you are suggesting to us is that we pay attention, that we receive this gift, this opportunity to re-examine everything. It's also not super fun to re-examine everything you thought you knew about everything.
It's true.
So maybe bite-sized portions, maybe this is the time to re-examine how we grocery shop, re-examine how we hold meetings, re-examine how often we call our parents.
Exactly.
Or the people we love, and really use this opportunity to identify what's truly important to us
Yes.
what makes us happy, what lights us up, the things that are going to help elevate everybody, because we're going to need this. This will pass.
Mm-hmm.
And once it does, it'll be interesting to see what society emerges after this. And wouldn't it be amazing if it were so much better?
Oh my gosh. I think you really hit the nail on the head with that last sentence. That's my personal hope and belief. I in no way want people to be hurt or to be in pain or to experience the loss of a loved one through this. And I see the gifts too. I can hold both. Like it's not pleasant, it's not ideal, and we're being offered an opportunity to get more creative, to connect more intentionally to ourselves and to each other, to take care of ourselves in more supportive ways. I have more food in my fridge and freezer and pantry than I've ever had in a fridge or freezer or pantry. Not because I hoarded, but because I really lived meagerly before. Like, not to like starve myself. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna not eat because I don't need to eat and I need to lose weight. It wasn't like that. It was just, I have other things I want to invest my money in. My business is important. My relationships are important, like all this stuff. And I neglected myself. It feels so good to have so many glass containers full of prepped meals in my freezer for myself.
Yes.
To know that I've taken care of myself in that way. And I didn't. And I don't ever want to go back to, I need to go to the grocery store a couple of times a week. And I only have enough for like a little bit at a time, meaning a few days and max a week. I also have implemented a cleaning schedule for my house. Like, I used to do things very haphazardly, and I don't have like a lot of stuff around, and I have like a place for everything, but things get dusty, things get dirty. I need to organize. I now have like Monday through Friday, a specific day of the week that I vacuum every single room now. And that way it doesn't get super dust bunny ish in the hallway, once a month. So those are types of things that I found really beautiful. I've also done more creatively in this time. Like, I don't know if you've heard this, but supposedly King Lear was written during a time of self-isolation. Calculus was created during a period of self-isolation. So there's a lot of really cool things that exist now being birthed through the mud. So, like, I think personally, this is kind of a rebirth of the world, of humanity, and what is important and how we lead, and leading with compassion and with empathy, to value being over just output for output's sake, processing and creative ideas rather than jumping to solving an issue so that there is data and metrics. Like, numbers are valuable, but qualitative research is just as valuable. And we're getting so much from this that it can't be ignored, in my mind. What are some things that you've done a little bit differently in the last month?
Oh, good question. Well, I have talked to my mom a lot more often. And I have, I have been able to honor my own sort of energy flow throughout the day.
Yeah.
Whereas before I felt like, oh, I need to be at the office at a time and be at a desk at a time. And the reality is I don't at the moment. The festival's not up and running. And we're still in this sort of off-season planning phase. And at this point, almost everything I need is actually accessible on my phone. So
cool.
As long as I have that with me, I'm at work. Now, the downside is, as long as I have my phone with me, I'm at work.
So boundaries. It's interesting you brought that up. A friend and colleague of mine, Scott Birkin, just recently finished his latest book. It's all about design, but he recently put out some information about remote work. And he's got tons of great content on that subject on his blog, and he's talking about it a lot over on Twitter. There's a lot of people that are used to working remotely that are happy to share their wealth of information to people new to it. And some of the cool things that I've seen are, don't just assume I'm at home, I'm going to slog my way through the day. Keep some structure for yourself. I would add the caveat, make sure it's structure that works for you and feels good, because you get to decide those things now. And the companies that were very adverse to remote work are being forced to find ways that it will work for them now. They have no choice. So I can very easily see the way people work is going to drastically change in the future. So I think that's super cool that you're like, oh, well, I've got my phone. I can do anything that I want to. And I need to put some limits on this bad boy because I know how I could, operate.
Yeah. I learned how to turn notifications off on a lot of things yesterday.
Snaps to that. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And I also changed the notification tone on my phone because it was the ready check sound from a video game. Like, is everybody ready? Kind of sound. And so that would always alert me, which was fun until it would not stop going off, because text message after text after text, suddenly we're all communicating via text message.
Yes.
And it was stressing me out. So I changed it to this pleasant ping.
Oh,
a ping.
Yes.
Ping.
That's exactly mine. Yes. Yes. Well done.
Yeah. Trying to think what else we've had. This is shocking. On Zoom, the last 2 Sundays, we've had board meetings for the Highlands Festival. 100% participation, which we never had at an in-person meeting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is very interesting. People who were like, no one's going to want to get on the computer. No one knows how to do I'm like, we're going to figure it out, because this is the world we live in now. And look, they all did.
Yes. Yes. My mother, she is a member of Weight Watchers, and they've converted all of their meetings to Zoom. And maybe a month or so beforehand, I was showing them how to use Zoom for an unrelated reason. I said, see, isn't it paying off now? You know how to use the technology. There's no learning curve.
Yeah.
For different generations, I think this is probably more stressful than for others, obviously.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that as well?
I actually don't know. That's not been my experience. I think if anything, it might be harder for the younger generation.
They all have such different stressors. For high school, their chief complaint, for lack of a better term, I'm a doctor or something, is, they've had this whole build up their whole academic career of senior year. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to go to prom. I'm going to, walk and get my diploma. And none of that is happening. Same thing for college students and their spring breaks and major milestones. They don't, their brains are not fully developed either. So managing that discomfort is hard for them. The next kind of age group up, new employees into the workforce have been struggling to get work. As a millennial, that happens all the way up until 38 for those struggles. And so they're doing more gig work. Gig work, as we can see, is increasing and increasing. And those people are moving as a unit now to get more benefits, even though they're contractors. I've worked as a contractor, and I still have some freelance contracts that I am responsible for whatever I need to do my job. And they are moving as a unit to say, in this situation, we want you to be responsible for some things for us. So it's just changing so much about how we take care of ourselves and each other at each bracket. I know for the elderly, their chief concern is staying alive and staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Younger than that, like 60s and 70s, and they're looking at their retirement funds like, how in the hell am I gonna, I had all, what am I, the stock market,
Yeah.
and it's everybody's got their own concerns and priorities, and I think it's even more important to recognize that your problem, your complaint, your frustration, your fear is not better or worse than anybody else's. It's valid,
Mm-hmm.
and so is theirs. And we can all appreciate that about each other's situations, and lend a helping hand, not literally because we aren't allowed to touch right now, but no pun intended.
Elbow.
Yeah. Throw them bows in the direction of someone who needs them. However you can help. Certainly do what you can to lift the collective mood.
Because the thing, we will get through it.
Yeah.
Like, it will be over, and we don't know when, but it probably not going to last for 2 years. Eventually everyone's going to catch it, right? And then
herd immunity.
Herd immunity, yeah. But eventually it'll be over. And so right now, while we're in this cocoon, right now is when we can figure out what we want it to be like. Who do we want to be? Who do we want to walk out the door as once this is over?
Yeah.
What kind of a world do we want? I know I want a world where restaurants all reopen.
Girl, I have never missed sushi so much. I'd love to know what you miss. Like, what do you miss food-wise?
I miss sitting at a bar.
Just sitting at a bar.
Talking to whoever happens to sit next to me and the bartender. And I miss, so I have a lot of, I think so different things trigger my freak out because look, I don't have it together during this whole thing. I don't want anyone to.
Nobody really does. I mean,
I'm holding it together right now with like a twist tie. And as I drove down our street, our main street. So just today, this afternoon, I had occasion, I had to leave the house, go down Main Street, pick up my husband and his vehicle, or drop him off, do a thing. I didn't get out of my car, but as I drove down, seeing all the signs on the doors on Main Street, and I just felt the panic well up inside of me.
Because you were looking at it. You got the full communication.
Because I could see it. I could see it, the results of it. And I know almost, I would say I know personally, let's say probably 40% of the shop owners on our main street. And I know almost every, I would say every restaurant owner. I know every single restaurant owner in town.
Wow.
And that community, especially in our town, we were just named a year ago the best small town food scene in America.
Oh, wow. How cool is that?
Right? And we have the most restaurants independently owned and operated. So not Chili's.
No shade. No shade, Chili's.
No shade for Chili's, but independently owned and operated eating establishments per capita than New York City.
Wow.
Small town. So it's easy to get that per capita number up. but still. And so it's a significant part of our economy.
Yeah.
And to see all of that getting shut down right now for no fault of any, like, I think that's the craziest thing about this whole situation is like, it's no one's fault,
Right.
This is just happening. And it's hard to sit here with it. Like, we don't have anyone to blame. We don't have, like,
people are trying. Oh my God. They're trying to find some blame.
This is true. But like, we couldn't have done anything differently to make it not, you know what I mean? Like, regardless of where you stand on did they eat a bat and then that's how this happened, or did someone in China eat a bat? Don't know. But regardless, like, we're in it now and we can't blame anyone. And now
it reminds me a little bit of, I used to work for a hospitality company, traveling all over North America, helping them when they would install new point of sale software. I would go in, I would train them, I'd be there to support them through the rollout, and then I would bounce. And I can remember one day I was working in a Marriott. We were installing a brand new bistro. It was a brand new opening of a hotel, and they were having some issues. And I was speaking on the phone with one gentleman, and all he wanted to focus on was, how come the problem happened? How come the problem happened? And just kept beating that dead horse. And I managed to get a word in after he released all he had to say. And I said, I hear you. I know that those things are certainly valid. In an interest of time, I'd like us to focus on how we can fix X, Y, and Z. Because that's all we can do. Like, I know people, loved ones that are the king and queen of like Captain Hindsight and wishful thinking and, oh, we shoulda. That doesn't do anything but like make you feel like crap. And so why would you intentionally choose to do that to yourself? You wouldn't intentionally do that to someone else. Don't do it to yourself. So you're right. We don't have a lot of control. We don't have anybody to blame. It's a unique circumstance. I remember sometime in March, there was like 2 or 3 other earthquakes in the US. And then there's a possible tsunami going over to Hawaii. And I remember thinking, this feels like Sim City, like back in the day, that video game. And I would turn off all the natural disasters. I just kept waiting. Are we going to find out that Godzilla is stomping around somewhere? I was like, it's just, systems are breaking so they can be rebuilt.
Yes.
That's the final thing that I keep coming back to and over again, so that gives me a sense of peace. That gives me a sense of control. And that gives me like hope about what we can do. I know for you in an industry that's unique because you are a nonprofit, you guys have your own separate concerns. Like, what are some big things that if you could have it your way would change in your industry?
You're actually asking me.
Yes.
If I could have it my way, it would be easier to apply for grants.
Ooh, I love that.
It would be easier to report on grants, on how the money was spent. If I had it my way,
yes.
One
more, just one solid
one more. Let's see. One more.
Really think outside the box. I know how creative you are. I want to hear this.
Oh my gosh. Like, for me, it always comes back to fundraising being the hardest thing.
Yeah.
It's also the most fun for me because that's where I get to find out what excites somebody about what we do.
Yeah.
And that's energizing.
Interesting.
If I had it my way, everybody would love fundraising. That everyone would look at fundraising as an opportunity to connect with another person who loves your mission as much as you do.
So I'm hearing through this, if the outcome could be fundraising had a completely different, not definition, but like how it was received by people, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
So rethinking fundraising. Yeah. I love that. I think your points about grant writing and getting access to resources, that's something that is a theme that goes far and wide. So I'm not surprised to hear that. As a leader in nonprofit, I'm sure it's a challenging thing for you guys to walk this road of taking care of a mission that you believe in so much, and to know that your hands are tied in so many ways, which really shouldn't be the case. I think that there's an opportunity again in how we run that kind of an industry in the future for the leaders who are mission based and driven to work with purpose, because there's plenty of people that are doing purpose work that are not their organizations are not built as not-for-profits. So, how can that really be supportive for you guys, I think is important. And getting really creative as a community during this time might be really, really powerful. So using this time to connect with other individuals in your industry and move as a unit. We're seeing more and more how when we band together, change can happen. So I would strongly encourage you to spend time with one another and see what creative solutions you guys can come up with to have an industry that really is the way that you're dreaming it could be.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, Jen, we are at our time.
That just flew by. As usual.
What was the name of the person? Scott
Berkun.
Berkun.
Kun.
Scott Berkun. So I will find him. Where's the best place to find what he's talking about? These.
Check him out on Twitter. Twitter. That's a whole new platform. Twitter. There's Twitter. It's just for twins. No, Twitter is great. His handle is at Scott Berkun.
Okay. And how can people get more of you?
You can visit my website, thejenmoff.com, for all things related to communication, connection, and self-care. I also recently launched Magical Mindfulness Consulting, and that is to work with rapidly growing startups, organizations, small businesses, specifically women-owned or led. And we do team building, leadership consulting, all sorts of great training programs in this exact field. So yeah, definitely check us out.
And there we have it. Jen, thank you so much. She was available so quickly for this interview. I was so grateful because it just occurred to me yesterday that she would be the perfect person to bring to you right now. And so I'm so glad that she was available and that we were able to do this on such short notice. And so, yes, be sure to check her out, the Jen Moff, across all social media, and also magicalmindfulness.com. Links will be in the show notes. And something happened at the very beginning of our recording that I will pop in here at the end if you'd like to hear it. It was kind of funny. A moment with my dogs, because that always happens. Anyway, thank you all so much. Be sure to share this with a friend and colleague who needs to hear it. And if you got something out of it, please leave a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening to it. That would mean the world to me. Since maybe you have a little extra time on your hands right now, a review would mean a lot and would help other people find this podcast who need the information. So thank you again for listening and supporting us. And remember, we shine brighter together.
Follow me down to the river. We can wash our cares away. Don't look back on yesterday. It's only a memory. Follow me.
Alrighty, so here we are. Thank you so much, Jen Moff. Jen is a
Do you have a bloopers reel or an outtakes? Because I think you did at one point, or maybe you didn't, but that was like, mwah. That's like what I did the other day in the audio, the like meet channel. It's like, this is a thing that I don't know what I'm fucking saying.
That was really funny. I started, and then Tanner walked in and like bonked the door open and just kind of wandered in like, here's my other room. Oh, God.